Let's turn to politics now, and the Democrats are bullish on their chances in 2018, thinking recent election victories signal a blue wave that could help them retake the House of Representatives in next year's midterms. And with the GOP holding just a one-seat edge in the Senate, Dems are not counting out retaking that chamber as well. Bernie Sanders on why Democrats are hopeful heading into the new year.
I think what you're seeing is a referendum on Donald Trump about a man who said one thing during the campaign and his actions are very, very different. What we're seeing in Alabama, what we're seeing in Virginia, New Jersey, and in states all across this country are large voter turnouts where people standing up and fighting back and demanding that we have a government that represents all of us, not just the 1%. If I were the Republicans, I would worry very much about 2018.
Let's bring in our political panel. Democratic strategist Jessica Tarlov is with us. GOP strategist Lisa Booth is with us as well.
Hi,
both
John.
of them Fox News contributors.
Hey.
Hi to both of you.
Yeah.
Jessica, to you first. From the Republican standpoint, how worried are you about losing one or maybe both houses of Congress?
I think I'm really worried about losing the House. I think I'm less worried about losing the Senate. I agree with a lot of what Bernie Sanders said there in terms of this being a very high turnout, enthused Democratic base right now, especially focusing on the African-American vote, which is what delivered the win in Alabama for us, though I know that those were extenuating circumstances, and we're not going to get an accused child molester every time.
The African-American vote tends not to turn out, though, in non-presidential election years.
Right. Well, that's why the special elections have been so important there, and to make sure that we continue to cultivate that turnout. I take your point completely, and obviously when you're showing up to elect the first African-American president, that's going to be a larger turnout than for a Hillary Clinton, for instance, but we need to continue to cultivate that enthusiasm going forward, and I think we're in good position in the House. But at the Senate, we're defending, I think, 25 seats, 10 in deep red states that went for Trump. So I'm not so hopeful about that. But the House ain't bad.
Yeah, Lisa, typically in off-year elections, the party that controls the White House does lose a bunch of seats, and it tends to go in line with the president's popularity polls. This president's popularity polls at this moment are not all that great. What do you think the chances are?
Well, I actually agree with a lot of what Jessica said, surprisingly. But, of course, Republicans have the House and the Senate and the White House. So, Republicans could face some losses heading into the 2018 midterm elections. I'm a little bit more worried about the House than I am than the Senate for the reasons that Jessica laid out. I mean, look at the Senate map for Republicans. Democrats are defending 25 seats. I think Republicans are defending 8, if my memory serves me correct. And if you're Republicans, you're only defending one state that Hillary Clinton won, and that's the state of Nevada, where Democrats are defending 10 Senate states where President Trump won, 5 of which he won by double digits. So I think the Senate is much more difficult. Look, I've worked on campaigns during 2-wave elections, 2010, 2014. I think it's a little too early to really tell and read the tea leaves. But, for the reasons both Jessica and I outlined, I do think there should be some concern for Republicans.
But that's what we like to do this time of year. We're about to turn the calendar page to a new year. We like to read the tea leaves. Jessica, most elections revolve around the economy. Democrats, I mean, Nancy Pelosi famously said this tax reform bill is an abomination. What did she call it?
Armageddon, I think.
Armageddon, there you go.
You didn't notice the end of the world?
Right, it hasn't come yet.
Yeah.
We're still alive.
We'll be here to cover it if it comes. But listen, what if this economy takes off under this tax bill? Is that going to be a problem for Democrats, Jessica?
Depending what they say about it. I think if the Democrats come out there and the American public is feeling more and more optimistic, they have higher wages, they have more money in their pockets, and Democrats are coming out there and just railing with the same tired talking points of this is all about the 1%, we're not going to get anywhere. I think that Democrats need to be very careful about their messaging on this, to talk about the disparity and what the upper class is getting versus the middle and lower class, that these cuts will not continue in perpetuity, what kind of breaks were hidden in this that benefit those that are not the base of our party. But I think that we need to be very understanding about that and get our own wins here. Lisa and I have been talking a lot about the potential for a bill to get protections for our dreamers, 800,000 of them. We can do something on infrastructure, and that's a win for both parties. I think, when you look at the generic ballot, and we're up 13 to 15 points right now, that just doesn't bode well for Republicans Republicans, as you point out, these are natural cycles that happen in politics. So Democrats need to be careful. Don't be insulting. I don't want to hear the word deplorable on national television or even in private at a fundraiser, because someone is always videotaping you. Be careful in how you're speaking about the masses of Americans and those who voted for Donald Trump, who he's at 35% approval. Some of those voters, we can pick them off if we are careful and thoughtful.
I think we just gave you 30 seconds of free time for candidate school. Lisa, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I do think Democrats did themselves a disservice with just this crazy rhetoric we saw over the tax reform debate. Look, the Wall Street Journal had a poll out not that long ago where only 17% of Americans think they're getting a tax cut, when in reality, even liberal groups are saying it's at least 80%. So that's a lot of room for Republicans to change that voter opinion heading into 2018. So I think when you have 80% of Americans realizing that they are in fact going to get a tax cut, that they're going to have more take-home pay, I think those numbers change, and that does certainly benefit Republicans heading into the 2018 midterm elections.
But the cut doesn't come into effect until next year, so you're going to see the little bump, and certainly the bonuses.
No, but I'm talking about voter opinion and changing that messaging, getting that messaging out, and letting voters know that what they've been hearing from the national media simply isn't true. That this isn't just for the rich. This isn't just for. No, they're not. Listen, turn to other networks, read other publications. That's simply not the case. That message is not getting to voters.
No. I'm saying that you can hear a message all the time, but until your bank account goes up, you are not going to feel it personally. Democrats, I believe, are much better messengers on this, and I don't think you would disagree, certainly, about what's gone on the tax bill. So if you consider the fact that people are going to still talking about that, and I do think it is a bill that is incredibly slanted for the upper class and not for the middle and lower class, and we can debate that another time. My point is, if the cuts aren't going to come into full effect until next year, people are going to be voting on their same wages or with their $1,000 bonus or an extra $20, which I don't know if that changes a 13 to 15 point slide towards the Democrats.
Worth pointing out that a lot of people wrote off Donald Trump throughout his candidacy, and he's now occupying the Oval Office. So it's going to be an interesting year.
3 more years.
For both parties.
And the economy's doing well.
All right.
3 more years.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, John.